Greetings, advocates. Welcome back once again. Today, we're going to take a look at the who's who of ufology. Ufology is the study of UFOs and all things related to them. If you're someone who's new to the topic, you may assume that most UFO investigators are operating out of their parents' basements while sporting their signature tinfoil hats. While there are a few like that, there are others with very respectable careers and impressive backgrounds. It can be time-consuming to sit and listen to what everyone has to say before making your mind up as to who makes sense and who doesn't. We'll try to make that process a bit easier for you by introducing you to and giving you a bit of the background of some of the most prominent people in the field. And so without further ado, and in no particular order, let's begin. Stanton Friedman. Some would say the godfather of ufology. Stanton T. Friedman is a retired nuclear physicist who worked for some of the most prestigious companies in his field. Friedman got involved in UFOs when he became the first civilian investigator on one of the most famous UFO cases of all time, the Roswell case. This was the case that really put UFOs on the map, and even though there have been official explanations offered by the US government, the case remains one of the most compelling in history, largely in part due to the work of Stanton Friedman. He is also famous for his attempts in authenticating the infamous Majestic 12 documents, which he argues there was no substantial grounds for dismissing their authenticity. He also points out some interesting discrepancies in the US government's most famous effort to investigate UFOs, Project Blue Book, pointing out that the unknown cases reported during the press release were announced at 3%. However, Friedman points out that if one were to actually read the document, they would find out that the unknowns accounted for 21.5%, claiming that the Air Force had flat out lied during the press conference. Friedman has given over 700 lectures in all 50 states and 19 countries around the world. He's written a number of books and appeared in numerous documentaries. He has debated skeptics and debunkers over the years on radio and TV and was a classmate of Carl Sagan. With his scientific background and approach to his work in investigating UFOs, he is one of the most respected ufologists there is, a true veteran of the field. Honourable Paul Hellyer. Without doubt, the highest ranking individual on our list. Paul Hellyer was for 4 years the Minister of National Defence for Canada. An engineer and pilot as well as successful politician, Hellyer had no interest in UFOs for his entire time in office, stating that although UFO reports did cross his path from time to time, he was too busy trying to unify Canada's defence systems and with other issues. He was sent material for him to read for a long time and says that once he got around to reviewing said material, it became evident to him that there were huge issues with regards to the UFO problem and that the people deserved to know the truth. He spoke at the University of Toronto in 2005 and stated there that he believed that UFOs are as real as the planes flying above, which gave him, in his own words, the dubious distinction of being the first person of cabinet rank in the G8 group of countries to say so unequivocally. He has since written books and done many interviews on UFOs and believes that disclosure of the UFO secrets would force officials to come clean about recovered and reverse-engineered alien technology that would be able to eliminate the use of fossil fuels within a generation. To someone new to the topic, hearing Hellyer speak about multiple species of extraterrestrials and them having visited Earth for thousands of years may be going off at the deep end a little. But when you consider Paul Hellyer's position and credibility as someone who is entrusted with the defences of an entire country, you may just have to stop to reconsider. Whatever way you look at it, he is someone who has held a number of highly respectable positions, and at the very least, if anyone deserves a few minutes of your time, based on his past, he's someone who is hard to dismiss out of hand. Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Joseph Allen Hynek was an astrophysicist and professor. Hynek acted as a scientific advisor to UFO studies undertaken by the US Air Force under 3 consecutive projects: Sign, Grudge, and Project Blue Book. When Dr. Hynek was assigned to Project Sign, he was skeptical of UFO reports. He suspected that they were made by unreliable witnesses. He even stated that the whole subject seems utterly ridiculous. He then spent the best part of the next 20 years working under the employment of the US Air Force, and at one point described himself as a debunker, stating that he enjoyed his role as a debunker and that debunking was what the Air Force had expected of him. During his time working on UFO reports, Hynek examined hundreds of UFO reports, including those made by credible witnesses, like astronomers, pilots, police officers, and military personnel, concluding that some reports represented genuine empirical evidence. After work ended on the last of the US Air Force investigations, Project Blue Book, Hynek became openly critical of the whole operation, saying that it was not a scientific study and that the Air Force had deliberately withheld information from the public when releasing their findings. As someone who worked for 20 years for the Air Force, if anybody knows what they're talking about when it comes to UFOs, it's Dr. J. Allen Hynek. He went on to become the founder of the Center for UFO Studies and wrote and co-authored books on the topic. His opinions on UFOs went from seeing UFO sightings as a fad that would disappear to being one of the most outspoken people on UFOs in history, famously saying, "I do believe that the UFO phenomenon is real." Luis Elizondo. One of the newer names in the field of ufology, but also one of the most impressive. If you've been following the news over the past few months, you may have come across the story of AA-TIP, or the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program. This was news broken by the Washington Post and New York Times that the Pentagon had spent $22 million between 2007 and 2012 on studying UFOs. The revelation came last December and sent shockwaves through the UFO community. 2 months prior to that, Luis Elizondo made his first public appearance on stage with rock star Tom DeLonge, and we'll touch on him later. This wasn't at one of DeLonge's concerts, but rather at the launch of the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, an organisation to study the outer edges of science, as DeLonge puts it. Elizondo stated on stage that he had recently left his post with the US Department of Defense, where he had headed up the AA-TIP program. A former CIA intelligence officer, Elizondo is someone with impeccable credentials, who also helped the Washington Post and New York Times in breaking the story of the AA-TIP program. He also had a hand in getting the Tic Tac UFO, the Gimbal UFO, and the Go Fast UFO videos declassified. He has made a few very important comments since his emergence from the shadows, including saying that although funding had reportedly ended in 2012 for the AA-TIP program, that work had continued long after that, and that when he stepped down from his role in October of 2017 to join To the Stars Academy, he had a successor. He also stated when asked in an interview for Fox News that he believed that we are now at the point of beyond reasonable doubt as to whether or not we're alone in the universe. To the Stars Academy is an interesting, ongoing story, one that AOD has been keeping tabs on. They have so far kept good on their word to release declassified UFO videos, but many people have failed to be impressed by them. They claim that there's a lot more to come in the coming months, including a piece of material from one of the AA-TIP cases that can be manipulated into losing weight and levitating. Elizondo has only publicly been on the scene for the last few months, so there isn't much more information available. However, given his credentials, his involvement with the AA-TIP program, and now with To the Stars Academy, he's someone who may be worth listening to in the future. AOD will be keeping a close eye on this one. Nick Pope. Nick Pope is a freelance journalist and former employee of the British Ministry of Defence. He worked for the MOD between 1985 and 2006, and while there, between the years of 1991 and 1994, he worked on investigating UFO reports for the MOD to assess whether or not they had any defence significance. After the MOD shut down its UFO desk, Pope worked there for another 12 years, but after leaving his duties with the MOD, he became outspoken on his own beliefs. He has done talks on the topic of UFOs and offered his own thoughts, saying, "The UFO issue suffers, I think, from an image problem, but actually, if you look past the silices and the stories about this, these things are seen by pilots, they're tracked on radar, and there have been many of these sorts of incidents over the years." He refrains from saying that he believes that UFOs are extraterrestrial, but that on the balance of probability, it's probably more likely than not that we're not alone in the universe. And also, on many occasions, has spoken of the need to take these sorts of incidents more seriously. He's also said in the past that he feels the government probably does know more than they're letting on in regards to UFOs, but he can understand their position given the national security implications. All in all, Pope is someone who's interesting to listen to. He doesn't overly lend himself to one side or another, and often reminds listeners that most UFO cases are explainable, but that the ones that are more difficult to explain are the ones of interest. Given his background in defense intelligence, he's definitely someone whose opinions are worthy of merit. There are many other prominent individuals in the UFO field, so many in fact that we can't fit them all into the one video, but we'll be back with episode 2 of the Who's Who of Ufology. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to let us know in the comments below what you liked or even disliked. And if you did enjoy the video, please share with your fellow advocates. Thanks for watching, and remember, there's no cure for the red pill, no ladder to get out the rabbit hole. Your only job now is to keep your mind open and your eyes on the skies.